For those of you who don't know me, my name is George Smith, Head of Community and Strategic Partnerships here at Augmentt, and I'm delighted to be joined by Taher from MSP Camp. Taher, how are you? How are things going? How's your week looking?
It's good, man. Working from home for the next 2 weeks. We got a new office. We're officially like a startup now. So we got our office and it's getting painted right now by a muralist. So the next two
Oh, nice.
weeks we're remote before that's done. So it's been kind of cool. I got two kids, so I get to like take breaks and go hang out with them. It gets a little distracting, but for the most part, it's been a good time.
What kind of style of mural are you going for? I'm originally from Belfast, where a lot of our murals have men with guns and like so. Are you going for something a little bit more zen or a little bit more
Yeah,
SD camp focused?
yeah, camp theme. So we got just like beautiful campgrounds, like big on color. Like she's a really awesome local artist. So one of my favorite posts we created, it's called the Ram Eating Monster, and it's a Google Chrome destroying the city with two ram sticks. So he turned that into a little Yeti, and he's actually holding me and Steven, one of my employees. So anyway, yeah, I'm stoked about it. It's looking cool.
Great. Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, well, I think as we'll get things rolling here. Thanks everyone for joining. We are here today to talk about mastering your MSP's pitch, like how to empower your entire sales team. And so what that really means is Tahir and I have known each other for a while now. We were having a really good conversation about about marketing, about sales, and how those are very two distinct departments within every company, really. But whenever it comes to MSPs, I think a lot of folks can be very technical focused, as is their skill set, as is their job. But what would happen if we took, say, a technician, put him in a bar, and he was speaking to your ideal customer, your prospect, someone who could be the big company, the big fish, the lands, like how confident would you be in their ability to be able to communicate your value proposition and what you offer? They've got us talking a little bit about how it doesn't take a lot to be able to equip your team to be able to set others up for success, but it is something that you need to drive and have a plan around and actually have a little bit of focus on that. So to hear, what are your kind of thoughts at a high level in general about getting your whole team on the same page when it comes to selling?
Yeah, I mean that was so important for our MSP. It was amazing how much our growth, like if all the growth was on me as the vice president of business development, we'd be screwed. It was getting everybody on board with growth, and we're going to talk about really some specific strategies we did at our MSP that really got that going. But even from a simpler perspective, one of our largest customers came from one of our senior engineers just sharing our Facebook post,
Ah,
right? Like it wasn't, the ROI was social media, but at the end of the day, if he didn't share that to his network because he loved what we were doing and the content we were creating, we wouldn't have got that customer, right? Obviously, after that, there's a whole sales process, took a long time. I had to nurture them, stay in front of them, and close. But the lead came from the team being on board with growth and sharing that content. So that's just an example of having like kind of everybody on the same page with growth. And if anybody knows economics, we understand there's a principal agent problem within business. And we're going to talk about some ways to mitigate that specifically for MSPs. So I'm stoked about it. I think this is a really good, actionable conversation. And those are the kind I love. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Be good.
and for those who don't know, as Tahir mentioned, actually used to be the owner and operator of an MSP. So he has been there, done that in the managed services world, and yeah, we'll definitely be sharing some great stories, some successes, and probably maybe a couple of two failures as well, right? To hear that people can learn from as well. I feel like sometimes the mistakes we make are the best learning opportunities. So
Yeah. And I wasn't the owner. I don't think I could deal with that much stress. I was just, I was just the head of sales and I was on a leadership team. So, more of a partner, but yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, well, the first thing I think we want to sort of highlight maybe is how are MSPs selling cybersecurity, but like let's take a step back and actually just talk about how we're talking about security in general. It feels like year on year things just continue to ramp up right? We're kind of living through a very interesting period of history right now where breaches are at an all-time high. The most recent stat I read to hear was from an IBM report that said in 2023, Q1 2023 had more breaches than all of 2021 and 2022 combined. So it is just rampant at the minute. And yet we're aware of it in the channel. A lot of folks are aware of it in the IT and technical sectors in general. But beyond that, at that kind of small to medium business level, there's still, I don't want to say an unawareness, but kind of like whatever kind of thing to it. The education, the urgency still doesn't seem to be quite there.
Yeah. It's good to see that a shift a little bit, especially in the last like 12 months with the cybersecurity insurance questionnaires. Or like, do we have this stuff or not? And it's like the greatest selling tool of all time. But definitely used to be a total drag like 3 or 4 years ago trying to talk security. Like people just even good size, like mid-size MSP clients just didn't care. I'm talking about 40, 50, 60 employees. Like they didn't want to have the conversation. Now, at least from my perspective, 95% of those customers are ready to have that conversation for sure. And then even the ones under are at least like, okay, I want to hear about it. But then the whole price thing usually can scare them off.
Well, I think
Yeah.
technology is continues to rapidly advance, like month to month, let alone year to year, right? With the threats and mechanisms and methods that threat actors are using. In my previous life, working at an MSP, we had a big opportunity to land a huge hospital client, and I remember being in the boardroom with the president, who was very, very smart, very, very technical, and the hospital board asked a kind of question about their website and what they were going to do, and he jumped into this, wow, what we would do, and get very, very technical. All of a sudden I could see people's eyes glazing over, and he spoke for uninterrupted about 7 minutes using all these technical terms and methodologies that none of them had ever heard before, and their response was simply, okay, I have no idea what you just said. And I kind of jumped in and just went, listen, here's what's going to happen. Like, here's the main problems that you have. Here's how we're going to fix it. Here's how long it's going to take and what we're going to charge you. Like, great, thank you. Tick, 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 done. Moving on to the next round.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, like, I think it's really, really important in this era, whenever there's still such a large gap between the technical IQ that's needed around cybersecurity and sort of businesses just doing whatever they want in a digital manner. We all, as MSPs and within the channel, need to get really, really good at simplifying how we're talking about security. And so whenever we talk about security, obviously the big bad thing is a breach, right? So one of the things I would recommend MSPs starting with is educating your client on what that actually looks like first. So before you even talk about secure, like the need for security, talk about what stages things happen in. So for example, talk about phishing. People have probably heard of that. Do they know it's spelled with a PH? Maybe start with some spelling and grammar there, and talk about what a phishing email is. Okay, we understand that that's whatever someone's trying to send you an email for you to click on something that then is leading to social engineering, right? So people clicking on links that they shouldn't be, where that threat actor is trying to obtain information that they otherwise wouldn't get just through manipulation. If we look at this through a lens, through something simple that everyone can understand, like Microsoft, for example, what happens then is the users entered their password, that threat actors got a hold of it. They now have access to that M365 user account. And if you don't have the application layer set up correctly, that's hardened with things like MFA, that is, again, very, very easy for them to get into. And then what's the ultimate end game for the threat actor in question? It's a breach, it's malware, it's data loss, files become corrupted, deleted, or held to ransom. And I mean, there's some crazy stories out there in the news right now. Hospitals, governments, massive corporations, all suffering from breaches. I mean, was this a challenge for you in your time as an MSP to hear, like trying to have these conversations and not only simplify it, but also trying to get end users to understand the risk?
No, I love it. I think this is, like we were talking about before we even did this presentation, like this slide is one of my favorites because it just makes sense. I think too many times we as MSPs will just say cybersecurity, or like really what the prospect wants to hear are like specifics. It's like the more specific I got with them, like the more they got it. Like when I talk about data loss prevention, I'm like, hey, do you know someone can email out, social security numbers right now accidentally or nefariously? And they're like, oh yeah. It's like, there's a way to stop that. Like that's a specific thing that they understand and they get excited about. Like, oh, really? And so this just shows like, hey, these are the 5 things. Like right here, we're not going to talk about the 400 things that come into cybersecurity. Like here's the core pieces. So I love how you kind of outline this for sure.
Yeah, and
Because
so
yeah,
keep it simple, and those are 5 key buckets, right? And so you can talk about that in stages if you want, in buckets, well, whatever makes sense to you. But then you want to talk about the user security. So okay, so how do we protect you and your staff, aka the end users, from this type of like malicious activity? Well, one, anti-phishing. Okay, so people are trying to send out emails and literally go phishing for your information. We have tools and systems that can block the vast majority of those horrible emails. Okay, but if one gets through, we want to make sure that your staff are equipped and trained that they can identify them. So we want to have cybersecurity awareness training. So they're looking for those kind of crazy emails that have a sense of urgency, that come from an unfamiliar email address, all these little things to look for. So again, we're increasing their cyber hygiene and their digital IQ. But that's not all the problem. We know that we can actually harden your environment by making sure that there's a lot of posture and policy configurations in place. So MFA is a big example, multi-factor authentication. Happy to say that the vast majority of users or end users do know what that is now, because so many companies, applications, the things that we use on a day-to-day basis are finally enforcing it. So that doesn't seem to be as much of a barrier as it was, but helping them understand what MFA is and why it's important. Once they get that, you can start talking about some of the other common configurations that you're going to be implementing and highlighting that there is a bit of a laundry list of things to do. Excuse me. And it's not a set it and forget it. These things need to be continuously monitored to make sure that they still stay on, they stay configured, they stay green, whatever way you want to describe it. And then the other thing is then having some type of sort of real-time threat detection and alerting system. So we know, for example, Microsoft has a great alert system. So if there's been a risky sign-in from a blacklisted country, you're alerted on that. Having that defense, right? Having that security camera, the burglar alarm, the fire alarm, whatever analogy you want to draw on, that's going to give you that real-time notification so that you can react accordingly. And then
can I just make a point on that one real quick? So for the MSPs listening, that right there, I always got head nods, because we love as MSPs to say we're proactive. And again, like we go with these buzzwords like proactive. One of my most impactful PowerPoint slides when I was in sales meetings was, what does proactive actually mean? And it was like 10 things that were on that slide. And this is one of them. Proactive alerts. Did someone set up a forwarding rule in Microsoft, like in Microsoft 365? Like prospects get that. They don't have to be technical to understand, oh yeah, that sounds sketchy. It's like, yeah, it's sketchy because someone might probably got in and is forwarding elsewhere. So you're not seeing the replies, even though you're in your own inbox. So like that slide, when I explained what proactive actually means, and this being in there, like they always say, like, no one ever explained that before, right? So this is a good example of like us getting specific in a way that the prospect cares about, right? So I like that you've included this. Obviously, it makes sense being Augmentt, but like that one really got the head nods because prospects cared about it, customers cared about it, and yeah, they wanted that stuff on because they want to know you're actually being proactive and not just saying it because your sales collateral says it.
Yeah, and I feel like this, these notes here, this is something that regardless of whether you're sales, marketing, support, leadership, like this is the hymn sheet that you want everybody singing off. So it's that unified message, like tell this story, use these simple but detailed examples so that regardless of whether you're speaking to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or your local plumber who, is a one-man business, like they can begin to grasp what does cybersecurity look like? What are the main threats? Why is that important to me? Okay, and what do you do to stop them? Like, what am I paying you for, and what does that look like? Okay, and then see with backup and disaster recovery, right? So super easy going back into the days. I think people blowing things up on stage, right, at live events and saying, okay, that's your hard drive gone. What now? Okay, and so having a backup and disaster recovery plan in place is key for people to think about the what if scenario as well. Now, selfish plug here from Augmentt. The nice thing is that we actually have all of these tools available for you built in. So we offer email security, cybersecurity awareness training. Our bread and butter is fundamentally in M365 management and security. So if you are representing a lot of tenants and managing M365 today, and you're sick of having to do it tenant by tenant manually, definitely check out Augmentt. And of course, we have some backup products as well if you're looking to back up M365 too. So that's a little Augmentt plug there for you guys. This is an example. Sorry, did you have something to add there to hear?
No, I was just saying that was good. It was subtle, and there is value. I'm a fan of Augmentt. They're not paying me to be here. Love Augmentt, but anyway, keep going.
So this is actually an example of one of our reports, but regardless of what type of information you're trying to share, I think this does a really good job of highlighting that you don't want to overwhelm your prospects and clients with technical information. Keep it neat, keep it simple, keep it clean. Use the kind of classic traffic light color coding, but also have enough information to show your value. So this is one of our reports that I've just taken directly from Augmentt. It's our security posture. It's listing all of the different postures that Microsoft say should be enabled in order to have a better, more secure Microsoft tenant. And again, you can tell a story here. Mr. Customer, you probably don't even know that Microsoft does not come secure out of the box. Did you know that? Okay, cool. Did you know that they have this small print that says that if you get breached, it's not their fault. They waives kind of all responsibility. So there's actually a whole list of all these different things that need to be turned on. Did you know that? Are you doing that? Is someone doing that for you today? Here's an example of a report that shows, and we can run this for you if you want, that shows exactly what's on, what's off, what's half-baked, what's compliant, what isn't. And if you want to understand more about why that might be important, we've actually got the rationale directly from Microsoft. And we've even got some columns there that if you need to adhere to a certain compliance protocol, so maybe it's CIS, maybe you're in healthcare and it's HIPAA, maybe it's PCI, we can talk about that. But also, like, what does turning on this thing do? Like, what is the impact? Well, your security score is going to go up by this much. So again, keeping it simple, but having the detail there that you can dive into if you get those heads nodding. So the main thing I would say is what is the call to action whenever we talk about, okay, we want all of our staff to be able to help engage in the sales process. You need to define and identify what that call to action is. What is step one in that process? So if it's someone on the marketing team who's helping generate collateral or maybe online ads, where are they taking people? If it's your salespeople picking up the phone, what are they trying to get people to do? And if it's that story we used at the start of a technician on a Friday having a beer at his local pub and he gets talking to someone, what is the thing that maybe he can introduce into that conversation and say, hey, why don't you do this? And for me, what my recommendation would be is to start offering audits. Okay, like I think it's fair to say to hear you'll have much more experience with this than me. You can't begin to talk about services or pricing or any of that stuff further down the line until you know what you're dealing with. I think that's a very fair comment to make when you're speaking to people. Say, we don't know what we're dealing with. We need to pop the hood on your car before we can quote you on the mechanical fixes. So let's start with an audit. Can we do that? You know, whether you want to charge for it or maybe freeze up to you, but like to hear, did you guys do anything like that in the past at all?
Yeah, for sure. I think I messed up though. Somebody asked a question in the question answer and I clicked answer live. But I think that means like we were supposed to answer here, and then I clicked done as if it's been answered. So long story short is somebody asked.
I think I see it here. There was someone saying what security reporting tool.
Yes. Yeah.
Which one
that was on the last page.
Oh, the last one. This is that's from Augmentt. That's from the Augmentt platform.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. To anonymous attendee, I'm glad I got your question answered, not just say I'm getting answered. All right. But yes, for sure, George. Love it. This is good.
Yeah, so I would say and again, like you may, because so you need to have that conversation with your team of like, guys, like no matter who you're talking to, like this is this is how we start that conversation. We start with an audit, and then it's up to you how you want to run that. You can charge a certain fee. I certainly would. If you're doing work, I want to get paid for the work, even if it's $100, right? Or you can offer it as like a free sort of service, whatever it is. But you can there's a range of tools out there on the market today, including Augmentt, that you can use to get some high level information to say, here is the health check, here is the status of, you know, your current IT. Get specific. Talk about Microsoft. Are you using Microsoft? Cool. Did you know it's not secure out of the box? No, I didn't. Are you concerned that if Microsoft disappeared, you'd probably be out of business? Yeah, it will probably suck. Okay, cool. Can I take a look at it for you and show you where some gaps and holes are? And if you're interested, then we can talk about what my MSP or the company that I work for, like what we do to help organizations like yours. Yeah, sure. Okay, here's my card. Here's this link. Book in, do this, da, 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 da. And that way, technician doesn't need to sell anything, or it's just feeding your funnel, feeding your sales team. So this is another example of a little snapshot from Augmentt where we actually have pre-built threat reports. So you as an MSP use Augmentt, connect through all your different M365 tenants, and we actually have a threat report that goes tenant by tenant and pulls in all the different risky information. So you don't have to manually build or collect things. You would just go to Acme marketing company, boom, pulls in all the risky information, nice clean report there for you to see, and you can just export that, send it to them in an email, print it as a PDF, whatever you want, and walk them through the risk. So that's exactly the conversation I would certainly be having if I was running an MSP today. To hear, would you be doing anything different or adding anything else on?
Sounds pretty good, man. This is good.
Okay, cool. So the other thing then that you want to kind of highlight, I'll kind of get ahead of the objections, is people hate being sold to, but they love to buy. Okay, remember that. People hate being sold to, but they love to buy. So one of the things you probably get, and this is maybe more apparent for existing customers, you know, it's always challenging to raise your prices, even though, you know, at the price of everything is going up, gas, groceries, you name it. So you can't just say, hey, we're raising our prices too. You have to be able to show some value or some new services. But I think you can also just show the lay of the land and take a step back and say, there's a lot of services out there for cybersecurity. You probably heard about that, Mr. Customer or whoever, Mr. Prospect. Please take a moment to understand the lay of the land. Like we talked about 2023 being the best year for threat actors ever. Use that as an example. We've got some highlights here, you know, a 775 increase in breaches in the last 4 years. And it's not just, you know, the things you hear about in the news where it's China or North Korea or Russia. Like it is happening everywhere. There are threat actors everywhere, all across the United States as well, Brazil, the UK, Europe, Africa, wherever. It's a pretty big business. There's that great stat that sort of the as breaches, I think it's the third largest what is it per capita, like the largest economy in the world. Like US is number one, followed by China, and then if you took the business of hacking, it would be like the third largest economy in the world. Yeah, so feel free to throw that in. So you have to get people to understand that we're like kind of living in the digital wild west at the minute, and it's kind of not a case of if, but when. And another thing I hear, you probably heard this all the time as well, is, well, we're just like a small company. Like, no, like we're too small to be hacked. Like no one cares about us. False and true. False, you're not too small to be hacked. You're just too small to make the news. And true, nobody does care about you. You're right. Hackers or threat actors aren't using the sniper approach anymore where they're specifically targeting people. It's the shotgun. And right now you're weak and you're low hanging fruit. And so if they hit you and it works, that's it. They don't care. Okay.
Yeah, we get that all the time, and I've actually created a lot of content around that because it's a constant thing I hear. And basically how I've shifted that conversation, and I really have made sure my team understands, it's like common sense cybersecurity goes a very long way when it comes to small business. Like all of that incremental cybersecurity stuff, like vulnerability scanning and like penetration testing, like that stuff's gold, but it's getting you that extra 1%, 2% of value once you've already got like the EDR, the MDR, the MFA, the patching, the updates, the proactive monitoring. Like there's so much more stuff that is less expensive and high value for a small business. And so I'm just straight up with a small business. I'm like, you're right. Maybe we don't need to talk penetration testing right now. Like maybe we don't need to talk these like super expensive type pieces, but you 100% have to have like all of your endpoints with MDR on it. You have to have where if somebody takes a laptop out of the office and they're not under the umbrella of the firewall, like, yeah, no, we need protection on the endpoint. That's just, it has to happen because, again, common sense cybersecurity goes a very long way for small business because it's a small business. They're not going to spend a ton of time and effort trying to get in there, but so many small businesses drop the ball that they can get in fairly quickly. And so that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, I think, when I look at all these incidents that are happening in our local area, most of the time they're dropping the ball somewhere simple. Let's just do the simple stuff. Check. Yeah, it does raise their agreement about $500-600 a month, but they feel good about that $500-600 a month. They feel like they're actually getting something out of it versus me approaching them with that $3,000 a month just security thing, that they're just like, okay, I don't know, we kind of baby step it. Anyway, it's not sure if there's any value there, but
security by 500 or 600%. You're absolutely right. It's just like you guys don't have MFA on. Like with you may as well just leave the front door of your house open. You know what I mean? Like use as many simple analogies as you can to get people to understand. Like, yeah, kind of how silly they're being and the lack of hygiene that they have. So so I would say, like, as a summary, guys, for talking about security, keep it simple. Okay. Even like, don't underestimate how little some of your end users might know when it comes to IT. I mean, to hear, not to pick on you, but even say, you were saying there, like, all you guys need XDR, MDR on like your endpoints. There'd be people out there you say that to, and they would just be like, I still don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that is. I don't know what an endpoint is. Right. So don't underestimate that, and make sure that you're being very simple and specific. And
that's a really good point. I don't actually say it to the prospect. I guess I'm knowing my target market here in the conversation, but you're 100%. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's gold, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Focus on what they care about. Like I said, people hate being sold to, but they love to buy. So don't come across as salesy. Tell that story. Use examples from the real world. Great one is MGM hack that happened at the end of last year. That's a massive corporation with tons of cybersecurity dollars behind it. They still suffered a massive breach, and look at the impact it had because of how interconnected everything was. Not only was a bunch of data stolen, but the slot machines weren't working. People couldn't get in and out of their rooms because the key cards were electronic. Everything is so interconnected these days. So use stories and real life examples to help explain and create something that resonates with them and their business. And as I mentioned, like, avoid technical reports because you'll just overwhelm them. Nobody likes feeling stupid. One of the key things I learned in my sales training was how terrible the question is, does that make sense? Because if you go through a report or anything and say, does that make sense? What is that person going to say?
Yeah.
Right? They're going to say yes, even if they did, because what person wants to go, no, I'm an idiot. Well, you just spent 10 minutes explaining something to me and I don't know. So they say, yep, and avoid the conflict and move on. So avoid.
Yeah, I think I say that all the time.
So, and it.
Thank you, George. Seriously, that's like really good tip.
Yeah, it's a common thing to ask, but like, just think about like how you're asking these questions and going through some of these motions. And like I said, at Augmentt, we've won awards for our UX design. We one of our first hires was actually a specific UX designer because we wanted to make sure from inception that our reports were clean for MSPs to use and intuitive, but more importantly, could be easily exported as a PDF so that someone who doesn't even know how to turn their computer on can easily at a glance see, okay, this does not look good, and the second page does look better. So let's walk me through some of the changes and improvements that you're making. Like, show me the value you're providing, or show me the risk, and make it easy for me to understand why I need your services. So again, just a quick little plug on Augmentt here, through the lens of Microsoft. If you want your team to be able to contribute to your sales funnel, you want to make sure that they're not feeling overwhelmed at their own job or whatever their main priorities are. So being able to save time and create efficiencies is huge. A big thing we do at Augmentt is having that strong baseline, creating standardization, and minimizing the noise. So what does that mean? It means with Augmentt, being able to configure a lot of security postures, you're doing the work once. By having that standardization, which is what a lot of MSPs are looking for now that we're kind of halfway through the 2020s, is doing the work well and having a scalable process there, and then minimizing the noise by some of the sophisticated threat alert capabilities that we have, so you're actually doing less work. But again, a little subtle plug there. Taher, I'm gonna hand over to you now for some information on like how to set up the team for success. I mean, again, having come from the MSP space for a long time, and I know you're developing a lot of content and assets around this through MSP Camp. Would love to kind of get your thoughts on how to actually train and some actions that MSPs can take to actually train their team when it comes to setting up for success for getting more sales.
Yeah. So I purposely tried to make it only a few slides because I really am just trying to include the stuff that I feel like really moved the needle when it comes to getting our entire team on board with growth. So there's really only 3 or 4 slides, but I hope that there's going to be some value here. So I had a really good conversation with Simon Moore. He's the head of marketing over at ScalePad, and we were talking about marketing. He basically said everything is marketing. And I loved this perspective, is that every interaction you have with a customer, with a prospect, with everything is marketing. 100% of it is marketing. And I love that. The owner of Alltech always used to say, everyone's on help desk. And I was like, great, I love that. Everyone is also in marketing. And so here's a great example of that to really put in perspective why this stuff is so important. About 2 years ago, we started getting a lot of complaints from clients. Our referrals were like drying up. And even though we have a lot of marketing going on, we still love referrals. Like, people talk shit on referrals, but referrals are gold. No matter how big you are as an MSP, referrals are great. So when I see referrals going down, even though we're growing, we have more clients, we should have a bigger referral base. That's alarming. And we started getting these complaints. They're like, yeah, we feel like you guys are growing too fast. And I'm the guy that's growing the business. So I'm like, I don't understand. We're not growing any faster than we were. And we're hiring as we're growing. All of the SLAs are exactly the same. The service has been unchanged, yet something has changed. For some reason, we're getting a lot of complaints. And then I noticed that the Teams channel that the techs go to let us know there's an opportunity is called sales.
No, okay.
And not account management, right? And I was like, I looked at a service ticket, and someone was having an issue with the Microsoft 365. It was a wonderful upsell opportunity to Microsoft 365 Business Premium. So he said, I'm going to have sales reach out to you. That was it. I changed the channel name to account management instead of sales. Immediately, the techs were pretty much trained right away. No, we're not saying sales anymore. It took one channel name and us just letting everybody know, hey, we're actually not going to say sales anymore. We're going to say account management. Because when your client that trusts you and loves you is hearing that anything they need changed on their account, they're going to be contacted by a salesperson, it literally gets them more distanced from you as an MSP. And that distance is real, and that friction is real. And literally that change within a couple of weeks, the complaints went away and we started getting referrals again. So I tell that example for a couple of reasons. One, it's not difficult to train an entire organization fairly quickly if you make the right moves, but you can also be missing opportunity by simple things like that within your organization, because everything is marketing. Them saying sales instead of account management changed the perspective and perception of a client we've had for 10 years. One word. So I hope that makes sense as we get into kind of the next step of this portion of it. So you can move to the next one, George, but I just kind of wanted to like frame that. Does that make sense to you, George? Why
Yeah, I love. I think
feel that way?
Even just within, I think that once you begin to think about it, even in your own personal buying habits, right? If someone's an account manager versus you hear from, hi, it's Sally from sales, you're like, ugh, go away, Sally. You know what I mean? Like, because we kind of got that guard up against sales. So yeah, really good point.
And even if it is a legitimate sales opportunity where it's a prospect, which happens all the time, still saying account management, right? Hey, we're going to get you to an account manager. We're going to get you, a lot of other MSPs have different things like client success, which I love. Whatever verbiage we want to use other than the sales guy is going to reach out to you. Because now it goes from, hey, we're going to sell you something to, hey, we're going to take care of you. All right. So I just wanted to go over some very specific things that we did in our MSP that really had a tangible effort and move the needle. The first one is we would actually have me and Colin go to different help desk meetings and let them know, give them a short presentation on, different services. How do we get the head nods from customers? When does the customer need it? Because we think our techs know, right? Our techs deploy it, they support it. We think they'd be able to have the conversation to sell it or at least recommend it, but the reality is they kind of don't, and that's fine. They're busy. So having that conversation where we actually get the account managers in explaining this is usually how we communicate this, and this is usually where you're going to see the opportunity. It really helped kind of get everyone on board with kind of how to sell, or at least prime it before they get it to that channel. And if you don't have a sales or account management and you're the owner, great, you should do that every week. And if you do those EOS meetings or any other meeting you do with your team, have a 5-minute portion of it where you're communicating a service. Now I'm going to skip down to the bottom, and I want to tie these together here. Make sure your team knows what campaign. Oh, sorry, no, not the bottom slide. I meant like the bottom point here, just for people to tag along. If you're running a cybersecurity campaign, or you're running an MDR campaign, or you're running a VoIP campaign, or whatever campaign you're running that month or quarter, you are shooting yourself in the foot if your entire team doesn't know what campaign you're running. Because yeah, that campaign might be, hey, I'm trying to get prospects. But at the end of the day, every time we run a campaign, we usually get some solid MRR and projects out of our current client base. And so even though we're marketing to prospects, sometimes marketing to clients, making sure your team understands what you are marketing right now is so vitally important, yet it's missed all the time. We want to market in a vacuum. So we can tie these two together when we're speaking with them on the weekly meetings to say, this is the campaign we're running. This is what some of the content looks like. These are the pain points and opportunities that we're going after. So if you see a client, when you're in a conversation with them, or if you see a prospect, we've literally gotten leads from somebody that has been at a dealership and has they've had issues with their computers. They tipped me off and I called them, right? So making sure they know what campaign is currently being run this month or this quarter, and tying that in with these trainings. Okay, I hope I didn't go too hard on that. Just wanted to kind of explain that. Scenario training, give really specific scenarios. Again, these kind of tie in, but you notice a client has a lot of spam. Awesome. We're going to get them on email threat protection or Graphis or whatever it is that we're selling. A great story around MDR. So the story we always like to say is either the case study of a prospect that came on, we put MDR on, literally we were able to roll back ransomware and it saved them ridiculous amount of money. So we use that, again, specific story. Like if they didn't have that, it would have been days and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they have it. So we rolled it back. We're good to go. It was beautiful. Another thing is scenario training on, hey, you have somebody calls you. The computer is 4 years old. It's got a hard disk drive, or it's only got 8 gigs of RAM, or it's on i3, these different criteria. Are you going to recommend that they replace it or upgrade the computer? In some cases, yeah, we just upgrade the computer. You hit the account management channel, and you say, hey, we're just upgrading it. Or is this a good scenario to say, hey, go ahead and start priming the client conversation that it's probably going to be an upgrade, so you're going to prime that conversation for account management. So when they take over and they call, the client's already kind of ready to accept that hardware.
Yeah, no one likes surprises.
Yeah, we do a lot of priming. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but we do a ton of priming within our MSP, like just planting the seeds as much as possible with that scale pad hardware report we send every single month. Shows what's green, what's red. I think Alltech might now be using Augmentt, and it's like there's value in constant priming and seeding. So it's not just always in your face. It's just like, hey, there's these issues. So when we have that conversation in the next QBR, you're ready to make a move. All right, but that's a whole nother conversation. Quick feedback when the tech gives a good recommendation or referral. So make sure you blast out to the whole company. Hey, good job, Alex, for referring us to this, blah, 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 which we're actually going to talk about a little bit on the next slide. And then making sure everybody knows what an ideal prospect looks like. You'd be surprised how many times somebody in your organization is going to try and refer you a computer repair thing. You're like, you work here. We're an MSP. We do business on a monthly agreement. Why are you referring me your friend that has a broken computer? What are we doing here? Right? Like, it's kind of crazy how often you will run into that before you start training your team on, no, what does an ideal prospect looks like? In our case, it's usually about 10 computers minimum, $1,000 a month minimum. So if they have 3 or 4 computers, you don't even have to worry about telling me about it.
Mm-hmm. And what are some simple qualifying questions that you can just rattle off as soon as that conversation is starting up, right? So you instantly know, and in that way, you have your information. You can be like, okay, cool, yeah, this person is of interest to my MSP business or to the MSP I work for. Versus, oh no, probably not for us. So we can just be polite and begin to wrap this up. A really good example, I see that all the time, is guys looking to standardize everyone on Microsoft, which is fine because they want it. That's what they want to focus on. And so if you bump into someone at the bar, at the dealership, wherever it is, ask them if they're using Microsoft. Oh, we're a massive school. We have loads of users. We definitely need an IT person. Instead of jumping the gun and being like, great, we can be that. We can do this for you. Da, da. Well, what are you guys using at the school? Are you using Microsoft? No, we use Google. Okay, well, great. Well, now you know that, yeah, that would be a nice client. But if you don't want to be managing Google and having to deal with a completely different technical ecosystem and all the headaches that comes with it, then they're not the right client for you. But then are they open to moving to Microsoft?
Yeah.
And do they need help with that migration? That's the direction you can take the conversation in.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we give very few criteria. Like we teach what an ideal prospect is, but when it comes to like when you get it to account management, when you get it to me, I don't put too much hampering on them because it's like, look, I'll figure it out. Like I'll go through that process with them, but I just don't send me any business name that's got 3 users or 5 users. Like I can't. No, but if they got 100 users and they're using G Suite or Workspace, I'm like, I'll figure it out. Just give me the name. Like I'll go bring them donuts and I'll get them to move to Microsoft. Like I'll get that all figured out on my end. So yeah, part of the training is like, what does an ideal prospect look like? But also if you get a good or an opportunity, just get it to us. We'll kind of figure it out from there, except for these minimal criteria like size, you know.
Here, do you have any experience or something that we hear a lot by, people say it, but do you have any stories around the concept that sometimes your smallest customers give you the most headaches for the least amount of dollars, so they want all your time for none of your money, and often the best thing to do is to just fire those guys and let them go. Have you seen any truth or have had any direct experience with that in the past?
It's a great question, and that is a huge question that I could go into in depth. But I think just for sake of time, there's a lot of truth to it, which is why I have a minimum. But the reality is, another reason I went to minimum is I was bonused off of profitability of the company. So
Mm.
I do not want to waste my time if a company's not moving the needle on our profitability. Whereas for another salesperson that may have a little more time, they can close those under $1,000 deals, and it would be worth it for the company and for them because they're going to get a spiff out of it. The company could make it profitable, etc. But I think at the end of the day, MSPs need to have a way of identifying if a client is profitable or not, because we have some clients that are 5 employees and they pay us $2,000 a month, and they don't call us that much. So like it goes both ways. And then we have large clients that's like, oh man, they're paying us $8,000 a month, but they're driving us effing crazy. So I think, as a general rule, yes, as you scale up in size, it does not mean more work in the MSP space. That's why we like to go for those big ones. But at the end of the day, if you're a smaller MSP, don't be scared to take the smaller ones. You can make them profitable, especially if you mark the price up correctly and you have a good statement of work and you get them set up right. So don't let me boo-hoo small organizations, because there's a lot more companies that are 1 to 10
Mhm.
than there are probably 10 to 100. So, but just as a general rule, because I got busier and busier, especially my last couple of years, I only wanted to go after them if they're like 5K and up,
Mm.
which actually worked beautiful because we were doing less onboarding and we were making more money. So
More time.
yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Yes. I think that actually kind of brings us on nicely to your next slide. Unless was there any other points that we didn't cover here on the
No,
training?
that was pretty much it there. Yep.
So
Just being
nice.
really intentional about teaching your staff. And then this one will kind of tie it together. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, though I love this idea of like incentivizing growth and not just having salespeople that have access to spiffs or commissions. So walk us through that to hear.
So I think it's so crazy that more more organizations, not just MSP space, by the way, in all organizations, we love to just pay a salary. We love to say, here's your salary. This is what you get. You got to work for me, and you're going to get a 3% raise every year, and you need to be happy with that. To me, that's bullshit. I think that's crazy. I think it's silly. I think we're all shooting ourselves in the foot in that way. I think at the end of the day, a salary is like a base commission, right? Like, or a base just for a salesperson, right? I think a salesperson is going to have a whole lot more upside on commission, but I think every person in an organization, everybody should have a base or a performance pay. Like, here's an example. I'm going to be hiring a web developer because we're going to start doing more websites. That web developer is going to get a base salary, but I'm also going to give them a bonus when they complete a website to the client and to my satisfaction, because that's going to do two things. One, it's going to keep them motivated to knock out sites fast. And two, I'm going to tell them, in every site that we get, as you expand the team, you're going to get a bonus. So not only is it, let's do it quickly, it's let's do it right, because I want to get more referrals, because I'm actually making more money as the business is making more money. So I say all that as a preface to say, how did we remove or reduce the principal agent problem at Alltech Services? We did a bonus structure based on the profitability of the company plus how long you've been at the company. So literally, it was like night and day. I would close a company. It drove me effing crazy because I'm the sales guy. I'm bringing the clients on. I get excited. No one else gets excited, which is fine. But they were boo-hooing. Everyone got upset when we brought a new client up because they're already stressed out. They're already busy.
Right.
We put this bonus in place the first quarter. Even the lowest level person got like, I don't know, an extra $1,200 that quarter, right? And then the higher level people really got paid well. All the boo-hooing stopped. Almost immediately, all the boo-hooing stopped. And all of that training we had been doing, and we're like, well, they're getting it, and we're getting a little more referrals, we're getting a little bit more from the team, grew a lot faster, because now not only are they trained on how to get us the lead, but they're incentivized because they know as the company grows and they're here longer, they're literally putting more money in their own pocket. Just like that. And so it's two things. One, it keeps them incentivized. We're all on board with growth. We're all on the marketing team. We're all on the sales team. But two, as we get techs that are trained and they're with the company longer and longer, it becomes harder and harder for them to leave. Yeah, they're getting their salary. It's moving up 3%, 6%, whatever. But those bonuses every quarter keep going up.
I think that's such a really, really important point as well, because we know that there is going to continuously be a massive shortage of talent in the technical space, right? Across the board, whether you're, top level cybersecurity expert at a dedicated, SOC or sophisticated MSSP, right down to finding some 18-year-old out of high school to come in and work help desk for you. Like, it's going to be a real struggle. So again, another little phrase that I've heard is retention is the new recruitment, right? So it's focus on your retention as much, if not more, than your recruitment, because again, as business owners or as managers, we know how irritating and frustrating it can be, one, to go through the process of finding people, the interviews, the questions, the judgment calls, then getting that person onboarded and ramped up can take, weeks, if not months at a time, depending on the position, all for them, after 6-7 months to leave for something better. I spoke, there's an MSP friend of mine had this exact problem. He went through a 2-year cycle where he went through about 4 or 5 different techs, because it was that 6-month cycle of finding someone, finding the right person, negotiating, hiring, ramping up. Then they would leave after 3 or 4 months, and he was back to square one with not really any type of scalability. So I think this incentivizing piece is huge, and definitely something that smart modern MSPs will start implementing. Do you think it's important to get, like, because I love the idea of you have to, where you mentioned like the web developer, like you have to be able to create different columns and different, I guess, like packages, because
100%. Yeah, everyone's going
to be linked to revenue, right? So you have to be specific about what qualifies for the compensation or bonus.
I think that everything is tied to revenue. I mean, for the most part, everything's tied to revenue. They just might not be revenue generating roles, but like even the administrative assistant is tied to keeping shit off my plate so I can make us more money. So yeah, like 100%, each one's going to need to have its own, like pay for performance is a whole nother, it's a whole study in itself, but it's so important. It is so important. And this is a general one for techs, like the salespeople, the account management didn't get this, right? Because they have their own pay for performance. A couple things to kind of tie this whole thing in, really kind of put the emphasis on why incentivizing is so important. Y'all been in business longer than me. I've been a business owner now for 2 months, right? MSP Camp's been around for 15 months, but I've only been a business owner for 2 months. So y'all know more than I do. But just in the little time that I've been doing this, I understand incentives are pretty much everything in business, whether it's the owner, whether it's the marketer, whatever it is, it all comes down to incentives. What am I incentivized to do? And here's a wonderful example of how this is all played out. Not only does it have the other positive externalities we've talked about, it also has a thing of they're not rushing for us to hire another person, which if you're an MSP that's more than, even $500,000, how much pressure are you getting from your team to hire another person right now? A shitload for sure. But when they understand that if we hire another person too early, the profitability of the company goes down, our bonuses go down. So, and now the other positive externality is like, no, I don't think we need to hire somebody. Right? I think we got this. And here's the cherry on top. In the last 15 months, we've added $1 million in revenue, in reoccurring revenue, right? And I think we're coming up on 5+ million now as a company. We haven't needed an additional body. What can you do with $1 million more without an additional person to support that $1 million? In fact, I left Alltech and I took the whole marketing team. So there's less people at Alltech today than there were when we were $1 million less of a company. Tom just bought a big ass new boat. So I have a feeling that this whole incentive thing, as well as a lot of other things we were working on, worked pretty well.
Yeah. No, it's huge. I think it's a really nice way to bring things back full circle. If we come back to that little story of like the tech in the bar and someone chatting with them about IT, all of a sudden that light bulb goes off and they can say, well, if I can just get this guy into our funnel by giving him a card, getting him booked into someone's calendar for that particular person to then start moving the process, well, that's great, because if this person ends up getting a closed deal from it, that adds to the revenue of the company, which adds to my incentivized bonus. And I've just been here on a Friday night, watching a game down at the sports bar, and I'm still helping generate revenue for the company through a casual conversation. But to have and make it effective, I think the summary here is you have to have, one, those incentive bonuses in place with strict criteria so people understand what those metrics and KPIs are. 2, you need to have a really clear process around what your call to action is. What is the thing that people are at your organization are funneling prospects and customers to? For me, we've used the example of a risk assessment just to get someone in the door, but I'm sure there's lots of other creative examples you guys can think of. And get everyone singing off that same hymn sheet and directing it towards that particular department, whether it's sales, that particular individual, whoever it might be, and get it all tracked. And I love your last point as well. Like, don't worry about who gets the credit.
Yeah,
right?
I almost missed that. That's a good point. That's something that's so important. Literally everyone here listening, like just make sure, especially if you're the salesperson, I doubt you're gonna have this problem as an owner, but like there were times where like I'd been planting a seed with a prospect forever to do this thing or a customer do this thing, and like a tech mentions something and the tech gets all the credit for them doing that thing. I don't care. I didn't care. I don't care. It's important that we don't care who gets credit. In fact, make sure you give the credit. All we care about, let's move the needle forward. Don't matter who gets the credit for the client coming in or getting the upsell, etc.
Again, and yeah, the incentive takes care of that. There's nothing worse than feeling like you've contributed to something successful, and then the salesperson is like, yeah, and I closed this guy, and you're kind of left there thinking, okay, so this guy's taking all the credit, is getting commission, and yeah, it can actually have the opposite effect, right? It can be very demotivating because your contributions aren't acknowledged, and you're not really seeing, any type of financial incentive off the back either. So
yeah, it goes back to that quick feedback. I have, anytime I get any value, any leads, anything, I blow up the Teams chat, like, good job.
Yeah.
X tech. So
anyway. Reinforcement. Last slide here. Do you want to talk about some low hanging fruit leads? Maybe just for some people who can kind of go out and just make it easy to get some more people into their funnel. What kind of things are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I'll do this for like a minute just in case there's any questions. I want to make sure I save some time. I think I've talked a little too much here. So low hanging fruit leads. So these are things that basically I just want to make sure I explain, like, these are the easy things. Like, it's easy to get VoIP leads from your current client base, from your team. Like when I tell the team we're doing a VoIP push, oh boy, do we get like VoIP leads, because people are like, oh yeah, they got this shitty, phone system, reach out, and we close it because yeah, VoIP's easy to sell. Hardware, super easy. Like, they're letting us know, hey, this, obviously that we know hardware reports, and we already approached them about the computers are getting old, but the tech can really plant the seed and send it to the board, and boom, we replace computers, hourly at this point, with 40 something or 4,000 under management. Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Again, not every sale needs to be a direct moneymaker. We just love when clients are on Business Premium. Makes our life way easier. And then you got Augmentt to make sure the Business Premium settings are all looking good.
Yeah, and it works for not just premium, but basic as well. I think that the key point there is, I love that idea. No, it doesn't need to be a money maker. We'd like and can help you make money, but also there's the other side of that profitability coin, like is efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So you only by like adding more revenue, whether it's more endpoints or upcharging, but if you can actually just increase your margin, because all of a sudden, instead of having one tech being able to manage, say, 50 endpoints, they can manage 250 endpoints because you're able to use smart automations and have everything connected in a sophisticated way. Well, you've just freed up a ton of time, or maybe even a whole other body. And coming back to Tahir's earlier point of, well, actually, we've got an extra $1 million and we still don't have to hire somebody else. Yeah. So what can we actually do with that money to help grow the business further? That's not going to eat into our own profitability. So
Yeah.
different side of the same profitability coin.
Yeah. And then spam filtering, obviously, like, oh, got a spam issue. It's very easy for the team to know how to sell spam filtering. Not that they're selling themselves, but they know how to prime the conversation. They know what it looks like, and then they can get it to the account management board, and we sell it that same day, right? So lots of low-hanging fruit stuff to get, like what we talked about today in this webinar. Like, okay, that's great, but now, like, let's execute on some of this, and you'll literally see money come out of it like in the next couple of weeks. So I think that's why I like this webinar, because it's like not only actionable, like, well, how do we do it, but also like, what is low-hanging fruit dollar signs that we can kind of go get right now.
Yeah, I would say if you're an MSP owner, like take this weekend, crack a beer, get a cup of coffee, and kind of a pen and paper, start writing out what some incentives might look like across your different departments and employees, and think about what that main call to action is. And then Monday, Tuesday morning, sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to start rolling out and paying people incentives based on like revenue sharing of the company. Here's what we're looking to get people in the door for the rest of the quarter. Okay, we're going to start offering risk audits or cybersecurity risk assessments, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so what do you need from me to help implement this new program?
Yeah. And like my biggest thing, like, let's say we start small, even if we're doing $10,000 a quarter, and we might think, oh my God, it's 10,000 less dollars I'm going to make. Zero chance, literally zero chance. If you're giving away $10,000 a quarter, you're not going to make 10,000 more dollars. If you have everybody on board with growth, like, it's literally impossible, no matter the size of your MSP. So we need to just not worry about how much we're giving out. We need to realize that that is a true go-giver mentality. You're going to give it out and you're going to get it back, 3x, 4x. So,
And your employees notice that too, right? Your employees
oh yeah,
too. Don't think they don't notice. Like, I love the idea of the example, your people buying boats and stuff. Your employees see you're buying boats and they're still kind of looking at their paycheck going, what? Whereas versus you might still be buying boats, but they know they're also getting a bonus every month or every quarter based on the direct impact that they make from their particular department or role. Yeah,
yeah,
it just
100%,
continues to ramp and scale like you wouldn't believe.
100%. Yeah.
So we'll wrap things up there, guys, because we're short on time. I see a couple of questions that have come in. So James, will this recording be made available? Yes, guys, all our webinars go as an on-demand webinar on the Augmentt website. So that will be available for you guys to access. James, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want, just George Smith Augmentt. Don't be, LinkedIning George Smith. You'll be scrolling for a while with all of the George Smiths out there. So include Augmentt, and I can send you the direct link so you don't have to plug in your information again. I've got another anonymous attendee. How do you expand an account where you have the smallest footprint? Like you've only sold them hardware or only managed their VoIP. Asking 1,000 inquiry questions is a barrier for MSPs. Great question. Really good question. I would definitely, for me personally, just because I have a bit of a focus on cybersecurity, I would start talking about that. I would maybe do a little bit of a factual and educational presentation, just highlighting like the fact that it's crazy at the minute. And feel free, Mr. Anonymous person, to reach out to me. I can definitely send you over some stats and studies that you can pull stuff from. Or if you become an Augmentt partner, we've got tons of resources. I know MSP Camp has lots of great collateral as well, but use that opportunity to educate so they understand the landscape, and then begin to talk about some of the other services that you can offer. So whether it's backup, email security, start with Microsoft, highlight the fact that it's the number one business application that makes them most attacked. How confident are they in their Microsoft security? Can you give me the opportunity to run a free audit and I can show you a report for free that is basically like the health check of your Microsoft? That gets your foot in the door. From there, you're able to have conversations around risk, around productivity, around cost, all those different things. Tahir, do you have anything, any kind of different opinions, or have you had any experience in the past of expanding accounts where you're only selling hardware or VoIP?
I think you made a really good point by leading with cybersecurity. I know there's a lot of people that do that, and I think that's gold. Another thing I always did is that's why I would sell VoIP by itself, not because I'm making a bunch of money on the recurring residual or the spiff. That's cool and all, but that's now a lead. It's a lead I make money on, right? And so any of those, it's good that you have some clients that you don't have all managed services with, because I mean, obviously you want to get them on there, but these are all leads. Just treat them like leads, like literally nurture them like leads. Like, yeah, I got my phone system in, or maybe I got a firewall on for you, or maybe I'm doing a monitor agreement for you, or maybe I'm break fix for you, whatever. You are treating them like they are a cold lead. You got email marketing going to them. You've got postcards going to them. You are stopping in with donuts. Like, I would be so damn annoying when I know, wait a minute, you're a 20 employee company and you're only paying me $300 a month. That ain't gonna last long. Cause the whole matrix, everyone talks about it, but it's like, okay, what are our clients and what do our clients have? You know, you put X's,
Yeah.
what they have and what they don't have. You know, everyone talks to the matrix, but that thing is gold. Like, if you actually live by that and you see like, oh my God, you can literally look at the opportunity in your client base. You're like, holy shit, there's $50,000 worth of MRR value right here with just my client base. So treat them like leads. And obviously there's a million, I'm not going to go into nurturing techniques and marketing and all that right now, but like, yeah, there's lots of ways to kind of take advantage of that for sure.
I got another question, another really good question that's coming here. Pay for performance sounds amazing, but at the end of the day, there's not enough money to go around. I assume the recommendation is to raise our rates. Without opening your books, I would say, yeah, probably, maybe, but also understand that whenever you begin to add and generate more business, that is generating more money. All right. So for example, if you're looking at things today and things are kind of balanced, you know, like, well, I can't really afford to give someone any more money. You could just simply start by saying, for all new revenue coming in, I'm going to be actually giving away whatever it is, 50, 60, 20%. You need to kind of work that out for yourself. I mean, I'd be happy to have that conversation in private and give some more tips. But what I'm saying is whenever new money comes in, take that opportunity to spread the wealth then. List, like, if you sign up a new customer for 10 grand or whatever it is, instead of doing what you would usually do, like, take that opportunity to jig something so everyone shares the wealth of that 10 grand, and then watch as that continues to increase over time. The other thing I'll say just about raising rates in general is, yeah, it's something I've seen MSPs struggle with. I think the average MSP today only charges around $65 to $72 per seat or per end user, which is criminally undercharging the value that you guys provide. There's programs and sales peer groups out there that are saying you guys should be charging 300, and if you go about it and pitch it in a correct way, there's no reason why you can't get there. It's just kind of getting over the internal fear of that, maybe. But start with education, start with cybersecurity risk assessment. People are making risk-informed decisions all the time. You just need to start building your processes and habits around that. And like I said, ping me on LinkedIn. Happy to go into more detail for anyone who wants to have a little sidebar. Tahir, what would you say around the pay for performance, and if there's a lack of funds available to kickstart that?
So much, man. I could talk about this all day. I'm really glad you asked this question, but I'm going to try and keep it as concise as possible. One thing on $300 a user thing, I think it's possible. And I know there's MSPs doing it. What I'm telling What I'm saying is we've been profitable around $100 a user, super profitable. So like, you know, I think to each their own. I think for the MSPs getting 300, that's dope. Like that's amazing. Congrats. But when we go into recession, like those MSPs are the first they're gonna start losing their clients. There's not there's not a salesperson on the planet that when a business is struggling with revenue, they're gonna be able to retain a client they're going to be able to retain a client at $300 when there's an MSP that's doing basically the same thing for 150. It just doesn't work out. Like I love that people are doing that. I think it's awesome. I just don't think it's sustainable. That's just my opinion. There are people doing that. So, and I think it's great. I'm just saying I wouldn't do it. Okay. All right. And George, I love that you brought that up because you're right. There's a lot of really good sales strategies and stuff out there to get those kind of numbers. Now, to answer the question, I think we didn't do this pay-per-performance thing right away. We couldn't afford it right away, right? That's why we took customers that were 5 users, 8 users, 10 users. We were kind of volume at first, which is fine, right? It's a stressful life at first because you're trying to get as many clients as you can. You're trying to get your revenue up. You're trying to get your profit up. And it's a tough time. But it works. I think the best thing to do is, like get good at sales, make sure that when you're quoting it, you got a really nice profit number from day one. But at the same time, if you're small, get some clients in the door. We got to get clients in the door, right? Like I just hear all the time, it's like, oh no, if they're not going to do my 100% stack, if they're not going to pay me $250 a user, if they're not within 10 miles of my location, I'm not going to take them. It's like, stop. We got to get clients in the door. We got to make money on them, but we got to get them in the door because that means our word of mouth grows, our referral base grows. We are more legit. We can get more reviews. And to sum it all up, now we have a goal, because if you have a problem and you have enough money to solve the problem, you don't have a problem. And that's why we have to stay focused on growth. We have to. We cannot be complacent, because we're literally shooting ourselves in the foot. Because I can tell from experience what my life used to be like at the MSP, where it was 3 people in a warehouse. I had to scratch and claw and bite to get $1,000 to send a direct mail campaign out. Now, before I left a couple months ago, left on really good terms. The owner is an investor in MSP Camp. He's my father-in-law. He's awesome. Before I left, I could spend any money I wanted because we were a big company now. We have money. So my point is, keep at it, stay motivated, because I promise you, shit does get easier the more money you make. That's just what happens. So anyway, God, I really went on a rant there. I hope that answered your question. Thank you for the question. And,
last other question we've got here, which actually tied into some of the things you touched on to here in terms of people maybe overthinking, oh, they don't live here or they don't focus. Question here from Brian: what are the best strategies for pre-sale strategies, or what is the best strategy for pre-sale strategies for outbound sales third party to better qualify during booked appointments? So I guess what you're saying there, Brian, is how to better qualify clients so that your appointments that you're getting are good quality, right? Yeah, I would say for me, like you need to understand what your ideal customer profile is first and foremost. You can't begin to qualify if you don't know what you're looking for. So maybe are you focused on a certain vertical? Maybe are you focused on a particular service offering or a certain size? My simple thing would be a really simple update you can do is to your form capture. Okay, a lot of people say, what's your first name, last name, phone number, and company name? Great, book in a meeting here. Add 2 other fields, maybe 3 max, so it's no more than 6 fields. If you get kind of close to 10, people might not be as willing to complete the form. And then ask some additional information. How many employees do they have? What vertical are they in? You can have a drop-down menu just so you have a little bit more information that can help you qualify those organic leads that are coming in.
Yeah.
Do you hear anything from you on that?
I think you answered it really well, but Brian, what issue are you running into? Like, is somebody setting appointments? Is it like a cold caller setting appointments for you and they're no showing? Or is it that they are showing, but it's like a really bad fit? Like, what are you running into, I guess?
Just what we maybe hear back from Brian, I'll speak to that. That's actually a really good point there to hear of. Sometimes if you use third parties to book you appointments, they go off appointments booked. don't do that. I would say.
Incentive,
I would
incentive.
I would say that I would say you have to move the marker to like completed demo or completed whatever the sort of main area of interest is. So for example, for me selfishly at Augmentt, I could go and get a third party and say I'll pay you for every appointment you book. Now, if I was a smart person, I would just fill that calendar with all my friends and say, here, just book in, don't show, I'm going to get paid for you just filling out this form. So you got to be smarter than that in this day and age. You got to say you will get paid whenever this demo is complete, or whenever this call is complete, or if that call moves to a certain status or stage in our sales funnel, like issuing a PO or something. The comparable example is the classic story of the small medium business that pays for clicks or web traffic to their website, and the web developer says, yeah, sure, how many you want? We want an extra 10,000 visitors a month. Here you go. Fast forward a couple of months, here's your extra 10,000 visitors. They're here, they're at your website. Well, but I'm not seeing any of that converting to traffic. Yeah, it's because, you know, it's from a farm in Indonesia or wherever. It's not actually contributing to your success, right? So if you're using third parties, always be very, very specific in what the success criteria and the payment criteria is.
Yeah, it's so funny. Brian has answered the question here, and that's kind of what I thought you were doing. It's funny because if you look at different cold call companies in the MSP space, like for instance, there's Abstract or Sapper that does a wonderful job of getting leads for MSPs, but the leads are low value, right? And then you see other ones like Arsenal that get you less leads, but I've heard the leads are higher quality. And when I see these two examples, I'm looking at them like, I guarantee the incentive structure is the only difference.
Yeah.
But on Abstract, the callers are getting paid per lead, or maybe they're getting paid higher per appointment. And Arsenal, it's probably like maybe getting paid when the appointment's set and getting paid a whole lot more if it closes, right? Like it all comes down to incentive.
Yeah. Brian,
And
I'll tell you right now, Brian, if you hired me to be your outbound sales rep and you were paying me on leads per booked, I would fill up your calendar, no problem. But if you tweaked it to say, George, I'm not going to pay you on appointments booked, I'm going to give your bonus is going to be tied to appointments completed, but the biggest chunk is actually going to come from revenue generated off those leads. I sure as heck am going to change my strategy and be a lot more focused and detail oriented into who I'm booking in, so that every shot counts towards getting that revenue, which is what you want, but I'm going to get a chunk of it too, versus filling up your calendar with 100 appointments a week that I get paid a flat rate per appointment. So I think ties nicely into what Tahir saying, even with third parties, like, you know, having the incentive be around the success or the revenue growth of your company.
yeah.
So,
So
yeah, because we are over time, so we're gonna wrap things up. Just love the amount of questions that we had there. So you know, maybe we'll Tahir and I will get together in the future and do another webinar, because it's been great. As I mentioned, if anyone does have any other questions, wants more information, reach out to myself and Tahir on LinkedIn. One of the best places to find us. And for those who are interested in Augmentt and learning more, just head over to our website, book a demo, quick 30-minute call, and we can show you the platform so that you can easily simplify Microsoft security across all of your different tenants, optimize your CSP, and ultimately start using some of our threat reports and our configuration tools to improve your profitability. Tahir, any last words from you?
No, man, you did great. This has been fun. I hope we provided some value. Thanks to everyone that showed up, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
That's great. Thanks everyone. Have a good afternoon. Bye bye.